But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So hello everyone, on behalf of the Justice for Girls Coalition staff team, Executive Director Ann Muno, and Program Director Tristan Eddy, the JFG board, the JFG community. We are so excited to welcome you to our 7th annual Beyond Pink Elevating Racial and Gender Justice. I'm so excited for today. I have a really good feeling about this event. I think it's going to go great. I'm so excited to see so many people here. And before we begin, I just want to do a quick introduction to myself. My name is Haley Gray. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm going to help facilitate this event today. I work as a legislative policy and advocacy intern at JFG. I started working at the program when I was a junior in high school, and I'm currently a junior in college now. I'm studying at UC Berkeley, majoring in legal studies and minoring in ethnic studies. Like I said before, I'm really excited for this day just to talk a little bit more with you all about advocacy, about girl-centered and racial-centered policies, and just have the chance just to get introduced to everybody in this space today. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you all enjoy. Next slide, please. So we want to start off the event with a quick land acknowledgement. We're hosting this meeting in Seattle, Washington, and we really want to acknowledge with gratitude that we're on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, a people that continue to honor and bring light their ancient heritage. Washington's colonial history, the theft of land, and suppression of cultural ways are really fundamental causes of disparities in health and wealth that's witnessed in Indigenous communities here and across the US today. So according to the Native Governance Center, it's important to go beyond this acknowledgement and really take time to consider specific actions that we can take moving forward to support Indigenous people and Indigenous nations as well. So here on the slide, you'll see a link to the center's guide to going beyond a land acknowledgement and really creating specific actions that you can take to support Indigenous communities and nations. And to learn what Native land you are currently occupying, you can visit native-land.ca. And if you're living on Duwamish land, we want to remind you that you can donate to Real Rent Duwamish at realrentduwamish.org. And here you can learn more about the Duwamish people, and you can pay rent for occupying their ancestral land. Next slide, please. Also, we just want to go over some Zoom logistics for the day. I'm sure you all are very well versed in Zoom by now, but it's always good just to do a little check-in before we begin. Just a reminder to please mute your mic throughout the event, but feel free to share your video if you feel comfortable. We love seeing all of your beautiful faces, and it really helps us feel a little bit more connected in the space, so feel free to do that. A reminder, this session is recorded and parts of it may be shared, so we just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that prior to the event. Next thing, you can change your name if you would like. You can click participants at the bottom of the screen and then find your name and click the rename button. From there, you can enter your name, your pronouns, and your organization if you would like, just so people can get introduced to you a little better. Also, you can use the chat box throughout the day if you have any questions or any comments. Our program director, Tristan Eddy, is going to be on tech support today. So if you have any issues, feel free to send her a little message and we'll figure it out. Another thing is that we kind of want to make this as interactive as possible in the digital space. So you can react to different comments or questions or presentations by using the little reaction buttons, which are on the bottom right of your screen. So you could use little thumbs up emoji to agree with someone, a clapping emoji to kind of affirm or uplift what anyone said, just so that way people feel a little bit more supported in a digital space. And lastly, we are really pleased to announce that we have closed captioning this year. It is auto-generated, so it may not be perfect, but if you're interested in using that, you can click the CC button on the menu bar to enable that. And I just wanted to check in with Tristan. Does everything seem to be okay with the closed captioning, or has that been enabled?
Yep, it looks good. It's a new feature, so some of you might have trouble finding it, but it should be on your menu bar. You just hit the CC button and it's rocking and rolling.
Awesome. So that was overall the Zoom logistics. I know that was a lot of information at once, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know in the chat box. And another reminder before we really get into it, we want to make sure that we're prioritizing self-care throughout this event. So if for any reason you need to step out to take a break, you need to grab something to eat, get something to drink, or just step away from your computer for a little bit, feel free to do so. We want to make sure that we're creating a space where everyone feels comfortable and is able to take care of themselves. Next slide, please. Perfect. So here's an overview of today's event. We'll be breaking for a couple of hours over lunch and then reconvening again for the afternoon session starting at 1 p.m. And so we hope that you can join us for as much of the programming as we have developed today, but please feel free to leave and rejoin as your schedule allows. And the same Zoom link is going to be active for the duration of the event, so you can just click on that to reopen the meeting at any time throughout the day. So at all of our JFG events, we really like to establish a set of community norms and agreements for the day. And so some of the norms that we wanted to use for this event are as follows. So the first one is I statements. We just want to make sure that we're speaking from our own experience and not speaking on behalf of somebody else who might not be in the space today. Our second one is listen. I know this one seems a little simplistic, but I think it's a really important skill. We want to make sure that we're doing active listening throughout this event so that we really have the opportunity to learn from one another and really be present in this space together today. Another agreement is confidentiality. At JFG, we like to say what's said here stays here, but what's learned here leaves here. So basically, taking the information and the different skills that you gain and bringing those outside of the event is totally fine, but we just want to make sure that we're respecting people's confidentiality and privacy as they share their different experiences today. Another one that we have is acknowledge your privilege. We just want to make sure that we're recognizing the ways that we're privileged and how that impacts us in the space today. And with that kind of comes step up, step back. So we want to make sure that we're monitoring our space and that we're creating space for people who might not normally have the opportunity to share or really be welcomed in a space. And with that, at JFG, we really like to center the voices of girls of color and gender expansive youth. And so we just like to keep that in mind as we go about our event. And our last one is literacy check or lit check. We really like to make sure that our events are as accessible as possible, which includes language accessibility. So if we're using a word or a concept or a term that you haven't really heard of or you're not super familiar with, feel free to type in lit check in the chat and then maybe just include the word that you're confused on. And we'll pause for a minute and just take a moment to kind of define and re-explain that terminology so that way everyone feels like they're welcomed and included in the space. So please don't feel like you're interrupting or anything like that. We want to make sure that everyone is really clear on the different topics that we're talking about today. So it is no issue at all. We want to make sure that this is as accessible as possible. So I believe those are all of our norms for today. So Tristan is now going to launch a poll to see if these norms sound good to you all. If they sound great, feel free to answer yes. If there's something else that might be missing, feel free to let us know in the chat so that way we can discuss it as a group. Wow, okay, you guys are really fast. That poll went so quick. Looks like there's a lot of agreements on the norms, which is super great. But of course, if you think of anything throughout the event, feel free to pop it in the chat. So that way we can all make sure that we're fostering a really good community space. And I also just want to give a trigger warning as well. We want everyone to be aware that we're speaking about a lot of sensitive topics today that could be relating to violence, sexual violence, and different mental health issues, just to kind of name a few. And so we really want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And like I mentioned before, feel free to take a break or leave the session if you're needed. And at the end of the presentation and through email, we'll kind of send a list of different resources that you guys could access if you want to kind of unpack some of the information that we discussed today. Alrighty, next slide, please. Whew, that was a lot of information just thrown at you all at once. So we just want to do like a quick grounding exercise just to recenter us all in the space. So if you just want to take a minute just to adjust yourself in a comfortable position in your chair or sitting on the floor, wherever you are, just make sure that you're relaxed and comfortable. Feel free to close your eyes or turn your camera off during this moment if you would like to. And I just want everyone to take a minute to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Another breath in and another breath out. And while you're continuing these deep breaths, I want you to really bring awareness to what you're feeling right now, what you're sensing around you, and what you might be thinking about. And really just taking the moment just to pause and check in with yourself. And on your next deep breath, I want you to kind of expand your awareness outward. Kind of notice some of the surroundings in your nearby environment. Notice what you're seeing, what you might be hearing, what you might be feeling, and just kind of bring your awareness back to your outside surroundings and back to this meeting. All right, so hopefully that was helpful for people. Sometimes we like to just take a little break just to make sure that everyone is feeling centered in the space. I know that was a quick little exercise, but feel free to mention in the chat how you feel, if it was helpful for you, what your responses to that was. And yeah, thank you all for participating. And we can go and transition to the next slide, please. Perfect. So in light of this exercise and the importance of self-care, we really want to encourage you guys to engage in this little interactive online puzzle, which I think is so fun. If you just need a moment to de-stress throughout the day, all Beyond Pink attendees can collaboratively work on this puzzle by visiting this link. It's tinyurl.com/beyondpinkpuzzle. And yeah, so feel free to just participate that throughout the day. And I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat about people feeling like really centered, feeling a little bit more relaxed. So I'm really glad that that was a helpful activity for you all. And yeah, so feel free to use this puzzle as well if you just want to practice a little bit more self-care throughout the day. All righty, so now we're really getting into the meat of it. I'm so excited. We really just want to talk about who is here today at this event. So historically, Beyond Pink has been a day of convening girls serving advocates and youth professionals from across Washington to train in person. But in light of the pandemic, we joined countless other organizations and transitioning to a digital training platform instead, and kind of using a digital conference model. And even though we're sad that we're not able to see your beautiful faces in person, we're really full of gratitude for this digital format because it's reduced a lot of barriers and accessibility and has made it so a lot more people can attend these events. I know even myself, I'm currently in California, so I'm really, really grateful that I'm able to be here because of this digital platform. And we have folks today registered who care about youth and are passionate about youth advocacy from 104 different schools and organizations that provide youth development, health, mental health, nonprofit services, child welfare, housing, juvenile court, juvenile rehabilitation, and higher education resources. So we're so grateful that we have so many incredible advocates and professional people just working in this space today. It's so great to have all of that representation and have so many people who care about the issues that we're talking about. And we really want to dedicate this space to elevating racial and gender justice for more than 800,000 girls under the age of 18 in Washington state, and nearly 17 million girls under the age of 18 who collectively live in Alaska, California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Kansas, Massachusetts, Maryland, New York, Oregon, and Virginia. So we just really want to make sure that we're acknowledging them because this event is really for them and making sure that we're bringing those voices into the space today. Next slide, please. Okay, perfect. So now we just want to share a little bit of context about Beyond Pink, JFG's statewide summit, and how it got its name. So over a decade ago, we named the event Beyond Pink because we really wanted to challenge the idea that, slapping pink paint on the walls of a detention center or like putting pink pillows in a after-school centered means that an organization gets high marks for centering the needs of girls. So in today's summit, Elevating Racial and Gender Justice for Girls and Gender Expansive Youth, it provides a really rare and vitally important opportunity to explore a lot of different issues and a lot of different topics, such as innovative ways to help engage and mobilize community members in work that's girl-centered and racially equitable. It helps us explore improvements in our programs so that way they're organized to strengthen how we engage girls as change makers in our society. And it helps us impact community advocates and make sure that they're shifting social norms to prevent gender-based violence. So all of our incredible keynote speakers, our youth speakers, and trainers are going to provide a lot of fresh ideas on how to engage communities and engage girls in driving social change and how to work with girls in a way that kind of strengthens the inherent power that we know they all possess. So we hope that you're able to take away some inspiration and a lot of practical ways on how to engage and support your colleagues. And we also hope by hearing and seeing what's new that you kind of leave with this desire and commitment to kind of join the efforts of the coalition as we continue to grow. Next slide, please. So now I have the pleasure of introducing our incredible Justice for Girls board member, Sami Alizadeh, to tell us a little bit about our organization and our mission. Sami is a senior deputy prosecuting attorney with the King County Prosecutor's Office. So please welcome me in joining Sami.
Thank you, Haley. Welcome to Beyond Pink 7, everyone. What an exciting day. As Haley mentioned, my name is Sammy Alizadeh. I use she, her pronouns, and I am incredibly honored to be here as a Justice for Girls Coalition board member and to welcome you all today to Beyond Pink 7. How did we get to 7? It's crazy. I also come into this space as a daughter of immigrants, a sister, a mother to a toddler, and a wife. Joining you all today is just so incredibly exciting, and I'm so excited to welcome you all today. Joining as a Beyond Pink participant and a JFG community member is something we want to celebrate. Our shared values of caring deeply about the next generation, furthering girl-centered racial equity, are really a beacon of light in honestly what can feel like a difficult time in our world. So I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for joining us today for our summit and for joining us in our JFG community. For those of you that are new to Beyond Pink or new to JFG, I want to give a little bit of background about some of the work that we're doing. So JFG is a statewide advocacy, model program, and training nonprofit. The coalition's work and much of what you're going to see at the summit today is on centering the needs of girls who are marginalized by discrimination, poverty, violence, systemic racism, and a male bias punishment system. So you might ask yourself, what does that mean for girls in Washington state? Well, it means advocating and helping passing legislation to secure mandatory comprehensive health education, which happened this year, really exciting. It means expanding harbor laws that further decriminalize and protect victims of commercial sexual exploitation. It means ensuring period products are available to girls across Washington so they aren't missing school because they can't afford to purchase the necessary items. It means providing girl-centered race equity practices like today's training at Beyond Pink and advocating for local budget policies to support such trainings. It also means community organizing using a public health approach across systems to create systemic changes. And it means providing girl advocacy programming and teaching girls skills they can use to testify in the legislature and speak up about the issues that directly impact them and that they care about. Centering systems change on girls, organizing as community to support girls is at the heart of why the coalition was formed roughly a decade ago. Back then, a small group of advocates, academics, and court administrators across our state were asked to testify in Olympia on trends and treatments of girls, specifically in the juvenile justice system. A power takeaway that they had after testifying in Olympia was that the trends were really unclear and that a great deal of collaborative work was still needed. The coalition was formed as a group of statewide volunteers that saw this need and tried to spark change. And that's why we're here today. In the years since forming, we have learned that across our state, efforts to create more effective programs and practices that are responsive to girls' needs are growing, but that funding to elevate and evaluate and scale these efforts is frequently unavailable. We also know that girls' pathways into the juvenile justice system often originate with surviving abuse, especially sexual violence. We know how racialized, gender-based pathways, biased pathways push girls out of school and into child welfare and/or court involvement or into houselessness. Finally, we know that when a girl ends up in court or a dual system involved situation, there are multiple other systems with whom she had contact and where potential could have interrupted the system involvement in the first place. We know more now, and we're eager to do more. About 5 years ago, with the support of a federal National Girls Innovation Grant, we received our 501c3 status, formed a board, and expanded our scope to include advocacy and training across multiple systems, including school, mental health, housing, child welfare, and juvenile justice. Several JFG staff, volunteers, and board members are also here today joining us in this space. I would love it if they would give a wave or a reaction, a little emoji or reaction. Cameras are off. And while I'm acknowledging Fanners of the Flame, I also want to thank the Satterberg Foundation and many of our other generous individuals who have donated over the years. We could not do this work without you. Later on, we'll tell you a little bit more about some golden opportunities to stay engaged in supporting this change and system advocacy, which also will include our membership program. So if you have folks that are interested in this work, stay tuned. You might be able to share some great information as to some membership opportunities for folks that are on this call and friends and family that might be interested in learning more. So I hope you all enjoy the day. The team has an amazing agenda ready for you. And I'm just so thankful for you all in joining Beyond today. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it back over to Haley.
Awesome. Thank you, Sammy. Always so great hearing from you. And now we would like to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Carolyn West. Dr. West is a professor of clinical psychology at the University of Washington, where she teaches courses on family violence and sex crimes and sexual violence. In 2021, she became the inaugural resident fellow of the Office of Community Partnerships. She has authored more than 80 academic publications and is the editor of Violence in the Lives of Black Women, Battered, Black, and Blue, published by Routledge in 2002. Dr. West is a fierce advocate for survivors as well. As a 23-year-old graduate student, she successfully filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against her university and started a social media campaign to raise awareness. After completing her pre-doctoral internship at the University of Notre Dame, Dr. West earned her doctorate degree from the University of Missouri, St. Louis. She's also completed postdoctoral teaching and clinical fellowship at Illinois State University and a postdoctoral research fellowship at the University of New Hampshire's Family Research Laboratory. In recognition of all of her incredible academic achievements, Dr. West was awarded the University of Washington's 2013 Distinguished Teaching Award, 2016 Distinguished Research Award, and the first Bartley Daub Professorship for the Study and Prevention of Violence from 2005 to 2008. That was the most incredible resume I've ever heard. So please welcome me in joining Dr. West today.
Hello, how's everybody? Wonderful, can you hear me okay?
Great, thank you.
You sound great, Dr. West. Thank you.
Great so much, thank you so much. I am actually, wish we could all be together virtually, but actually at the moment I am in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in a hotel room, and I just swiped somebody's hotspot because our the internet failed in the hotel. So I'm just happy to be here. And thank you so much for inviting me and giving me, oh, go blue. Yeah, well, Michigan. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to have this space with you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. And so I come to you in this space as, you know, the granddaughter and great-granddaughter of sharecroppers from Arkansas, but a university professor and now associate dean and researcher and scholar. And I've spent my professional life really thinking about the images that we have, particularly of African-American girls and women. And so I invite you to look at this one image here and ask yourself, when you see Black girls and girls of color, what do you really see? Do you see them as angry, hostile, aggressive, them as overly sexualized, or drinking, smoking, out of control, and just born to be conduct problems and disorders? A lot of my research, I spend my time really trying to unpack these images and what they mean. And so what I wanted to do in this space today is to talk to you a bit about adultification. Have people heard that term before, adultification? Does that sound familiar? Do you have a sense of what that sounds like? Feel free to sort of pop that into the chat as we go through this talk. And I'll tell you what the research says, and then we're going to talk about what this really means in real life, not just in the academic setting, but what it really means for Black girls as they walk through this world, and girls of color as they walk through this world. So what do I mean by adultification? Adultification, and this description comes from the report Erasure of Black Girls' Childhood, Girlhood Interrupted. Adultification is a form actually of dehumanization, really because it's robbing Black children of the very essence of what makes childhood distinct from other developmental periods, that sense of innocence. Adultification contributes to this false narrative that Black youth transgressions, they're intentional, they're malicious, instead of being immature decision-making, and really a reflection of not really having real choices too often, which is a key characteristic of childhood. And so that's what I want to spend this time talking with you about, because I think it's critical in the work that we do going forward. So what we know is that adultification, now this is a problem certainly for children of all ethnic backgrounds, but particularly Black girls, because a growing body of research has found that there has been a significant bias against Black girls starting as early as age 5. 5 years old, and I'll give you examples of that throughout this talk, but what does that like really end up looking like? So beginning as early as age 5 years old, Black girls were more likely to be viewed as behaving and seeming older than their stated age. They were seen as more knowledgeable about topics such as sex, able to take on adult roles and responsibilities beyond their age. And so we're seeing this happening as early as age 5. And so to give you more background on this, Georgetown Law Center on Poverty and Inequality, they did a study where they asked adults, well, how do you perceive Black girls when compared to white girls? And adults were saying they perceived Black girls as needing less nurturing, as needing less protection, needing to be supported less, needing to be comforted less, as more independent, knowing more about adult topics, and knowing about more about sex and sexuality. So they were seen as having all this knowledge base, which they didn't have, and knowing more about adult topics and not needing to really be protected or supported by the adults in their lives. And that is hugely, hugely problematic. And I don't know if other people have seen that in the work that you do, and maybe unintentionally, but it happens and it's a real thing. So let's kind of reflect. As I was preparing for this talk, I thought about how do we experience that adultification in the lives of real Black girls? And I reflected for myself, and I ask you to reflect too, working in inner city St. Louis, where I did my doctoral education, and seeing the pimps being waiting at the bus stops for little girls to get out of school, and victimizing them, seeing girls going to jail in juvenile detention centers for quote unquote prostitution, when in fact, really they were being prostituted. They were the victims in that case, but they certainly weren't seeming to be. And so think about with that with me, and as you go through this day's conference, what does that look like in the lives of the girls that you have contact with? Because it shows up in lots of ways. I teach a course in the psychology of Black women, and I also work as an expert witness. And you see it in case after case. We just need to look for it. It's there, but sometimes we just really don't name it. And it shows up in examples of a 5-year-old arrested and put in handcuffs because she had a temper tantrum at school. This was in Florida, I believe. And so having a temper tantrum, having a meltdown, police are called. The child had calmed down at that point, and then they tried to put handcuffs on her when she was too small to even fit in handcuffs, and then putting her in the back of a police cruiser at 5. And so that adultification starts so early, which then further traumatizes young girls. How does it show up? It shows up in our school system all the time for the crime of quote unquote disrupting school. So here's a young teenager. Her mother had recently passed away. She was struggling in school. And when she would not put her cell phone away, the teacher, instead of engaging this teenager, this child, and saying, hey, what's going on here? He calls in the school resource officer, which he proceeded to drag her out of her chair and toss her across the floor, when other students watched this and then were traumatized by this event, and some of them filmed it. And so her crime was disrupting school, but really the crime was committed against her, but the system, school system, that couldn't see her trauma and help her deal with it. It shows up when you're arrested at a pool party and the police come and you're in your little bikini swimming suit and throw you to the ground with the full force of weight and sit on you. In the trauma that the other kids experience when they're seeing this, when clearly you are unarmed and no danger to anyone. And it shows up in the lives of Black girls when a 9-year-old is pepper sprayed, a chemical agent used on a 9-year-old who's having a meltdown because there's a family argument between her mother and father, and she's having trouble coping with that. And the police put her in she doesn't want to get into the police cruiser because who would? And a police officer saying to her, you're acting like a child. And her response was, I am a child. She was 9 years old, and then proceeding to pepper spray her. So that doesn't help her deal with whatever chaos and conflict that's going on in her family at the moment. So we're seeing adultification around us of Black girls on a regular basis, which is shaping how systems respond to them. We see it showing up with popular celebrities that are using Black girls, sexually abusing them, using them in pornography. And when they come to court seeking justice in the first R. Kelly trial, when a jury member openly said afterwards about why he was reluctant to convict, well, I just didn't believe them. I just didn't believe the women. I just didn't like the way they acted, the way they talked, the way they dressed. And I just voted to not convict, even though there was a videotape of R. Kelly sexually abusing this minor on tape, which is child pornography. But despite that, even when the victimization is overt, it's still not recognized, still not seen. And so journalists, when they came forward with the story, this journalist for years had been coming forward saying, this is happening, we need to address this. And he just had to come to the conclusion that the reason it's not being addressed is because nobody in the society seems to care about what happens to Black girls. And that's a painful statement, but that was a conclusion that he drew because nothing seemed to be happening. And so finally, R. Kelly's convicted of sex trafficking and other charges. But how many other R. Kellys are out there in the community who aren't popular or famous celebrities, who are getting away with this because they understand that Black girls are adultified and sexualized and objectified in a way that nobody really cares about and will really address. It shows up in the lives of Black girls because they live in a society where there's so much sexualized media that is so unavoidable that, for example, in pornography, Black girls live at the intersection of all these forms of oppression. They don't have race privilege, they don't have gender privilege, and oftentimes they don't have social class privilege. And so pornography and other sexualized media feels very comfortable calling them the most degrading, disparaging names that shows that intersectionality. They're dehumanized. They're not even considered human beings. They're just inner city sluts or hood rats. And so when you see that happening, when you have a form of media that says it's okay to sexually abuse and exploit this particular population to the point where they feel comfortable and can monetize and make money from making films such as Pimp My Black Teen or Exploited Black Teen, where there's not even an effort made to pretend that they aren't victimizing or profiting from the victimization of a population, that spills over into the rest of society. And so it's not surprising, and it's shameful to me that when we look at the statistics on who's being sex trafficked and who's also invisible in that sexual trafficking, African-American children were 59% of all prostitution arrests, when in fact, they were minors and should not have been arrested at all because they were victims of sex trafficking and not really prostitutes who could make a choice about selling sex in any case, or even make a choice about, having consent to sex oftentimes. So part of this, these are just some of the ways that this shows up in adultification, sexualization, shows up in the lives of Black girls. So what can you do as you move forward and you do this work? This is what I would encourage you to do and to think about. And maybe you all have some thoughts on how to approach this as well. But from the work that I do, I think that part of what we need to be doing is that we need to be taking a historical lens. We need to understand that the images that we see in popular culture, in pornography, and that permeates the entire society about who and what Black girls are did not start in the present time. It's deeply rooted in hundreds and hundreds of years of racialized and gendered history that has told us that essentially Black girls and women were never children, never innocent, and legally never even rapeable, because the laws in this country were set up that were race specific around race, that said basically Black women and girls were chattel property, they had no rights, and they could be sexually victimized. and they actually participated in the sexual victimization because they were innately sexually promiscuous. And that shaped this country's history and how we see and treat Black girls and women even today. And so it wasn't surprising to me when we had the incident with Janet Jackson. People blamed her rather than saying, why are we finding entertainment in watching women, being objectified in this way? And so having those conversations, understanding our history is going to be crucial, I think, when working with Black girls and women. I think we need to learn more about adultification and sexualization of Black women and girls. And I really encourage you to read, if you haven't, and these reports are online, read the report on Girlhood Interrupted, the erasure of Black girls' childhood, the report that I referenced earlier. And then they followed up with another report listening to Black girls and women and what that experience of real adultification looks and feels like. Because I think that will give you a glimpse of how this is, if this research is real and what exists for Black girls and women. I think what we need to do is recognize that, again, all the systems that are impacted for Black girls, particularly the educational system. And there's a really great documentary called, Pushed Out, as well as a book on the topic. And it's really about the criminalization of Black girls in schools. And I gave you some examples of that earlier, of being arrested in school and detained in school and that kind of thing. And I think listening to those voices have really been impacted. And they have a nice website, Pushed Out, the documentary, of resources and policy and legislation around this particular topic. So we have to get more educated about adultification. Also, in the notes that I sent over for all the participants, this is online and available. PBS did a short documentary about how this looks in the Pittsburgh area about adultification of Black African-American girls and some of the similar things that we're seeing in Washington state as well. So part of it is just getting more educated about this, acknowledging that this is present in the lives of the girls that we want to serve, and we can't do it effectively without understanding this. Learning more about sex trafficking, I think it's going to be crucial because I think it goes unidentified and unrecognized because we see Black girls as so adult and so sexualized, so objectified. We assume that somehow they're participating in this when they really are victims. So they don't become the face of who we see as trafficking victims and survivors. So all of these are online, and the documentary Very Young Girls is just really a glimpse of how pimps get access to these young girls and victimize them, Black and brown girls. So getting more knowledgeable about sex trafficking in the lives of the people we want to serve, because Native girls, Latin, just women, girls of color in general, but particularly African-American girls tend to be overrepresented there. I think we need to start talking about the experience that Black girls face in the context of a web of trauma and violence. We tend to be too siloed in the work that we do. And if you work in child abuse, or you work in juvenile justice, or you work in domestic violence, sometimes we don't really talk to each other as much as we should. And we don't recognize that maybe that's one form of violence in the lives of girls. And we're not seeing, if you look at adverse childhood experiences, oftentimes these young people come from multiple adverse childhood experience. They're experiencing physical, emotional, sexual abuse in their homes. neglect, physical neglect, emotional neglect. They're living with family members who may have mental health challenges. They may be witnessing their mothers being physically, or caregivers being physically abused, divorce, or having a family member who's incarcerated. And that's not even mentioning racism, sexism, and communities that are really under-resourced and challenged. So they're having multiple forms of trauma that's not going addressed. And if we don't deal with all of that web of trauma, we won't be effective in doing this work. We've got to identify what researchers now understand is coercive sexual environments. Coercive sexual environments. So oftentimes when we're seeing that young woman, I live in Tacoma now, and some of what I'm seeing with gang involved, gangs kind of compelling and forcing girls into prostitution, for example, or other things that are going on in their communities where they're witnessing a lot of violence. It almost makes sense, if you feel like you don't have other options, that it's not that they're making choices, they're really constrained choices with just lack of options too often. And so what's going on in those environments, although they're remarkably resilient, what's going on there that's limiting their opportunities, that is forcing them into the criminal legal system? So we also have to look at our school systems. There's so much more that needs to happen there. It's pretty clear that Black girls are more likely to be suspended, to be receiving corporal punishment, being arrested, more in-school detentions. The school system needs to change, and it needs to be more responsive. In short, what we have to do is we have to stop pushing Black girls out of schools, because what's ending up happening is that they're being over-policed and underprotected in the school system. And so they're having trouble at home. Then when they come to the schools, and there are more traumas there. And so resources that I really like, Race, Gender, and the School to Prison Pipeline, pushed out the criminalization of Black girls in school. That's a book and a documentary, and another report, Black Girls Matter, Over Policed and Underprotected. So this is happening everywhere. And what happens is, once they're pushed out of school, they end up in the juvenile justice system. So it really becomes it's not just a school to prison pipeline, it's really a sexual abuse to prison pipeline as well. So understanding those links as well. So I'll give you a few other points that I would really like to make in the time that I have with you, and maybe we can also have submit for questions and comments. I think we have to help Black girls develop a healthy sexuality. And not to offend any Cardi B fans or Megan Thee Stallion fans, I actually, some of their music has got a catchy beat. And I understand why that would be really appealing to young women, for certainly, because it does seem like a type of sexual empowerment. But I think we also have to be careful that we give Black girls comprehensive sex education, so they understand how their bodies work, how they can set boundaries and take ownership of themselves, so that they can also assert what they fully deserve in this world. And when we have such narrow, limited views of what sexual empowerment is, I think we have to start having conversations with Black girls about, is this really sexual empowerment, or is this self-sexualization? And are you feeling empowered and good about how you're managing your sexuality, or is this really a performance for someone else? And so if the only images they see are Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, and what we see in hip hop and other sexualized media, that cannot be the healthiest way to approach sexuality. And as a sex educator for more than 30 years, I'm not opposed to sexuality. I'm promoting healthy sexuality. And I'm not sure that we see that in our popular media and culture. So asking, not shaming Black girls, but talking to them really critically about what does this mean for you? What do you see? And what does a healthy sexuality look like for you? Which means make Black trans girls, Black queer girls, all girls really visible in the work that we do. And I also think at the end of the day, we have to work on those implicit biases, those assumptions, stereotypes that we have for every race, religion, age. Sometimes it's implicit, sometimes it's unconscious. We may have those things and not even realize them, but they shape our values, they shape how we do our work, and it shapes the systems that we operate in that we're maybe not even aware of. And so at the end of the day, I would like us to see, despite all the challenges and trauma that Black girls face, that they are so remarkably resilient in the face of that. And I want us to sing a Black girl song, bring her out to know herself, to know her, to sing her rhythms, struggles, hard times, sing her song of life. She's been dead so long, closed in silence so long. She doesn't know the sound of her own voice, her infinite beauty. She's half notes scattered, without rhythm, no tune. Sing her sighs, sing the song of her possibilities. Sing a righteous gospel. Let her be born, and most importantly, handled warmly and not adultified, sexualized, and objectified. And I think as we approach this work, and we all seek to do better in these spaces, because you're all here, and I believe you're here because you care deeply about these issues. One of the most important reasons to care so deeply is I'll leave you just with the words of James Baldwin, is that this is not just a Black girl problem. This is an everybody problem, because as James Baldwin made it so clear, at the end of the day, for these are all of our children, and we shall profit from or pay for whatever they become. So I am going to stop there and see if we have some questions or comments or anything else.
I just want to say thank you. You served that. I appreciate your words and your energy.
Thank you so much.
I just want to point out too, there's a lot of thank yous and acknowledgements in the chat as well. A lot of people really appreciating your perspective and your expertise, just for being so honest. A lot of people saying that you had really enlightening and really powerful words. And I just wanted to call attention to that in the chat as well.
Great. Feel free after this is over. Don't know if I had a slide. You can get them my contact information. I'm at the University of Washington, Tacoma, and my website, drcarolynwest.com, which I'm updating now. And so doing a lot more work in this area, and most of my research is available for download. So please feel free to avail yourself of that if you want to know more about these topics.
Awesome, thank you so much. And Tristan's saying that she'll send out your information later this week. And I just wanted to thank you again one more time. That was just so incredible and so powerful. And I know, as a Black woman myself, I really appreciated you just centering us in this space today and really just talking about like how these different systems and institutions impact us differently. I feel like a lot of times, you know, we understand that there are these issues of racism and sexualization, but we don't address how Black women are affected in a different manner than other people of color, other girls. So I really appreciate you doing that today. And I'm just like, oh, I'm like geeking out a little bit. It was just so incredible. And I just feel so honored that you came in our space today. And I think a lot of your words really resonated with a lot of other people as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing conference. And thank all of you for the work that you're doing. I'm just so honored and pleased. And I think we can keep moving forward and really make some differences for all girls in Washington State. I look forward to meeting some of you offline and appreciate your time and attention.
Awesome. Thank you again. I really appreciate it. All righty. So after that incredible presentation, we have another performance for you all. I now have the pleasure of introducing our first youth speaker, Savannah Parker. Even though Savannah couldn't be with us live in the space today, she was really excited to write a spoken word poem specifically for this event and wanted to share it with you all. Savannah is a 19-year-old artist and performer who's sharing her piece, like I said today. And a fun fact about her is that her favorite quote is from a song called Spotless Mind by Jhené Aiko. And that quote reads, "Change is inevitable. Why hold on to what you have to let go of?" So we're really pleased to introduce Savannah's video with you now. And I think Tristan's gonna load that up so that way you all can hear her piece.
Hello, everyone. My name is Savannah Parker. I'm so grateful to be here virtually with y'all today. This is such a great organization and for such a great cause. So thank you again to Justice for Girls Coalition for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences with you all. Unfortunately, I am not able to be there with you guys today, but I did want to make sure that I was able to still participate. So without further ado, I hope that you enjoy this reciting of a poem called Not Only a Woman, which is also written by me. Why are you so loud? You should calm down. All words for you have no reason to be proud. Oh, I see. Society told you who I am or who I ought to be. By the skin I'm within, the clothes I wear, the shape of my lips, the movement of my hips, the style of my hair. You know how I does, huh? Oops, I apologize. That was improper of me. See, I've been refining my linguistics to receive a college degree, hoping to be just as worthy of the job as Lizzie with daddy's money. Ain't it funny how things go these days? Please, I've been dealing with this since I was under the age, unable to comprehend the size of the cage that I'm in, learning early on that in your eyes, my being is a sin. Though, am I not made of clay just as you? I guess not, because when all odds are stacked against two, only one bears the burden. See, as human beings, Lizzie and I are few and far between, but you struggle to believe in those you haven't seen. Answer me this. How can one be the least heard, the least represented, remain the topic of tragedy on our screens? We, the co-creators of life, and still don't fight for our lives? The slaughtering of our mothers, my sisters, their daughters. This is irrational, palpable fear, visible tears. It's ever clear, if you couldn't see it, I know you can hear. If you couldn't see it, I know you can hear. I know you can hear the cries of the missing, the lingering dreams of those who dare to believe in what they couldn't see. Society can't tell me who I ought to be. But even within my community, some see me as an object and not an entity. But I am chief of my destiny. I am chief of my destiny. And sometimes it feels that I'm alone because my kinfolk won't invest in me. And every time they're knocked down, they want the best of me, the rest of me. There's nothing left of me. I've poured myself empty, but honestly, I never had plenty to offer. See, I just want to foster my creativity and not be questioned for the validity of my words, my thoughts, my experiences, the validity of my experiences. The only request is that I be heard. Sometimes I want to be cared for just as I, my grandmother, her mother, and her mother's mother cared for others. Sometimes I want to run wild and free. I know I'm physically free, but systemically I'm bound below the knees. I don't have the freedom to just be like Lizzie with daddy's money. Sometimes I'm tired of being sweet like honey, just so my peers don't feel funny. Sometimes I want to cry because I know that in your eyes, I am just a woman. And it feels that it take a lifetime for you to see that I am not only a woman. I am a Black woman with needs, with visions and not just dreams. I have tasks that I will accomplish, and there are barriers that need to be abolished. I may never be polished in the eyes of society because I cannot stick to one thing. See, my being presents too much variety, so I cannot only be woman. Thank you.
Woohoo!
Oh my gosh, it's the way that it was so powerful, even though it was just a video. Like I could feel so much energy through that. Oh my gosh. And I'm seeing like so much affirmation in the chat. I agree with all of you. Absolutely beautiful, incredible, so powerful. And she's only 19, you guys. Like, oh my gosh, she's doing this at 19. The future is bright. She's so incredible. And we're always so honored every time she comes in, performs here, because it's just, we know it's going to be great. We know it's going to be great. And I'm so glad that you all were able to listen in today. Oh my God, there's so much affirmation. Other people being like, I want to play that.
Hello,
for
everyone.
some people.
My name is
I definitely feel that. It was really well spoken, super beautiful. Yeah. And I think Tristan was saying that she'll share Savannah's Instagram and an email later. So that way, if you want to follow, give some support, I'm sure she would really, really appreciate that. And now we are going to transition into another message from one of our youth involved in JFG. Sarah Khan is a 15-year-old member of our Girls Advocacy and Impact Network, also known as GAIN, and she's in the Yakima, Washington chapter. Since August, Sarah has been participating in a national fellowship of youth advocates called the Hope, Healing, and Health Collective. And as a youth leader, Sarah has helped facilitate listening sessions with over 50 youth across the country on the topics of BIPOC access to mental health services, with the goal of creating a national policy reform. Sarah's currently in school right now and is really sad that she couldn't be here today, but she created this short video to kind of tell you a little bit more about her experience with the collective. So Tristan's gonna pull that video up so you all can be introduced to Sarah a little bit.
My name is Sarah Khan and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a student at West Valley High School in Yakima, Washington. I am a part of Synergy Club, which is a multicultural club, teen empowerment network, and ecology club. I am also a member of the Girls Advocacy and Impact Network program, which is hosted by Justice for Girls. These activities have helped me stay involved in current day events within my own community and have introduced me to the importance of various kinds of conversations. My passion in advocating for mental health, human rights, and environmental issues continues to impact my daily life and choices. This summer, I received the STEM Rising Star Award. This is a recognition in my work trying to bridge the gender gap in the STEM field. I understand the importance of teaching and learning listening, and spreading awareness in our current day and age. I strive to continue to do my part in standing up for what I believe in. I am a youth leader for Justice for Girls on the Hope, Healing, and Health Collective, which we call H3C. The Children's Partnership, in collaboration with the National Black Women's Justice Institute, launched H3C in response to how the COVID-19 pandemic was disproportionately affecting Black, Indigenous, and Latinx communities. Specifically, how devastating the effects were on youth mental health. The public health crisis also coincided with horrific incidents of police brutality. This renewed momentum in racial justice and healing in response to calls to action heard across the country. Our goal in the collective is to expand the availability and accessibility toward culturally competent and gender-responsive mental health sources. This is to support youth of color, specifically BIPOC, who are experiencing historic crisis-level rates of mental health needs and suicide risks. Despite evidence of demonstrated need, behavioral health services are extremely underutilized in communities of color. Justice for Girls was chosen as one of 15 grantees who are helping lead the H3 Collective. Each of these organizations have one staff member and one youth leader. We meet monthly to create a national policy agenda that builds the capacity of youth-serving systems to provide effective, compassionate, and culturally responsive healthcare services for young people from marginalized communities and identities. The grantees have experience and expertise in supporting the socio-emotional well-being of youth of color. They gain this experience through culturally responsive youth services, including youth development, youth advocacy, peer support, restorative justice, and clinical mental health services. H3C is currently in the process of recruiting other youth of color across the nation and attending a listening session about mental health. The goal for the listening session is to provide a platform for BIPOC youth to express their mental health needs and concerns that will inspire future mental health services, advocacy, and policies. We will be excited to share the results with you in any subsequent reports that H3C publishes in results to their findings. So I also just wanted to share what I have been learning in H3C and what I enjoy the most. I am learning about the different ways that people care about BIPOC's mental health. It is so insightful to hear other youth talk about their opinions and concerns when it comes to BIPOC's mental health. I've also learned about listening sessions and how to conduct them and how to actively participate in them. So now I'm going to be explaining what I enjoy the most about H3C. I really do enjoy hearing other people's thoughts and opinions. It's truly so interesting to see how similarly youth can think. Going to school and just being in a community, you never really think about how similarly you and your peers can think about various different topics, such serious topics like BIPOC's mental health. And it's truly so rewarding to see and insightful to see how everybody just agrees on different topics and how they have all come to one conclusion. I would like to thank the staff mentors and my fellow youth leaders in the collective. I would also like to thank the Children's Partnership, the National Black Women's Justice Institute, and Justice for Girls for giving me the opportunity to participate in a meaningful change. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm glad you all got to hear from Sarah. She's such a sweetheart and she's so cute, but then it's also like she's just this powerhouse advocate. Like, she was really listing off all of these incredible organizations and clubs that she's involved in. And I see Amara saying that she's so inspiring. It's really been so great to work with. So yeah, I love hearing from her because she's just so humble about everything, but she's popping off in the advocacy world. Alrighty, so now we kind of just want to transition to give you guys a few JFG announcements before we break. So we really want to share with you some two exciting opportunities to stay engaged with our work throughout the year. So one way is by joining our JFG paid membership. And this membership is made to be available to anyone who's interested in our work and not limited to people who only work within the industry. So joining as a member means that you're showing support to JFG's advocacy work, and that really helping to continue to build this muscle that positively shapes policies that helps girls who have been marginalized by discrimination. And who have also kind of experienced different forms like poverty, violence, and are experiencing discrimination through this male-based punishment system. And we also know that services for girls are chronically underfunded, and we want to make change of that through our advocacy work as well. And so I just want to give you all just like a couple of high-level details about being a member. The cost for an individual membership would be $150 for a year. And this would give you access to our exclusive e-newsletters, which would give you information about like Washington state data on girls. It would give you different legislative updates, community awareness campaigns, and kind of tell you a few ways that you can engage in advocacy and stay present throughout our legislative session as well, kind of see what policy work we're up to. It would also provide you a 10% discount on all of our summits and trainings. So if you like this training, you can get discounts to future ones, which is very exciting. And then also you get admission to an annual JFG member happy hour. Hey. And then the second opportunity that we have is to join our advocacy membership. And this group is specifically for girls serving professionals in Washington state. So joining this membership involves attending a 1.5 hour monthly virtual meeting to collectively find like effective ways to address issues and opportunities for change that JFG has surfaced in the research that we've done and the different data that we've been collecting. So in our meetings, our members use a girl-centered and racial equity lens to build state-level legislation recommendations that JFG can champion moving forward. So this program is kind of centered around like helping JFG really build that public policy platform that we'll use during legislative sessions. So if you're interested or you know someone who might want to join the paid membership, feel free to click the link that Tristan will drop in the chat. And if you would like to join our advocacy membership, you can email Tristan at teddy@jfgcoalition.org. And we'll also send out like future sign up information in the email that Tristan will send later this week. But yeah, we just wanted to tell you a little bit more about our membership opportunities if you want to stay in the loop with JFG. Alrighty, and we would also like to just take a moment to uplift the Hilltop Artists program and promote their winter glass sale. Hilltop Artists is a youth development arts nonprofit based in Tacoma, and they've been operating deeply impactful programs since 1994 with broad community support and a track record of success as well. And you can support the youth in this program by stopping by the gym at Hilltop Heritage Middle School on Saturday, December 4th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you can purchase some of their beautiful hand-blown glass pieces. They're super incredible. I definitely recommend you all stopping by. And more information about the sale can be found online. And you can also shop online using the link that Tristan just dropped in the chat. So I definitely encourage you all to check that out and support them. They're a really incredible organization. They're doing a lot of really unique and creative work. So definitely support if you have the capacity to do so. Okay, that was a lot. That was a lot of updates. So now we're going to take a break for brunch/lunch, and then we're going to reconvene here at 1 p.m. And I really want to reiterate that this afternoon session is not to be missed. There's a program spotlight on an innovative Spokane school initiative, And our training will be provided by Chantel Hildebrand, who's the Director of Programs at Alliance for Girls. And Alliance for Girls is an Oakland-based nonprofit with the largest regional alliance of girl-serving organizations and leaders in the country. Super incredible organization. So it's really, really great to have them in the space today. And this session will kind of focus on how to best meet the needs of girls and gender expansive youth, especially girls and gender expansive youth of color. And we'll kind of do this through the adoption of racial safety principles as well. And this is an interactive session, and we encourage all participants to kind of imagine and advocate for safer spaces for girls and gender expansive youth and what it could look like within their organization, within your institutions like schools, and within your communities as well. So in the meantime, we kind of just want to encourage you to take a break from your laptop if you're able, maybe go on a quick walk, get something to eat, maybe even do the little online puzzle if you have some time. All Beyond Pink members have access to it and are welcome to participate if you feel like doing so. And yeah, we will see everyone here back at 1 p.m. But thank you all for coming to the morning session.
And if I can just take a moment, can we give Haley Gray all of our love and so much celebration? Haley, you are incredible. You were literally born to do this. You're so engaging, and I just love listening to you. So everybody give it up for Haley. Give her some love in the chat. So many hearts, so many clapping emojis. We are so appreciative of your time, Haley. You're an incredible champion for girls, and we just love you to death. So thank you to all. I'm going to keep this meeting online. If you want to take a peek at some of the art that our GAIN members have put together over the past year, please stay on. You can watch this. If not, we will see you back here at 1 p.m. It's the same link. And if you can't join us for this afternoon's training, we will be recording this session and uploading it to YouTube. So thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you this afternoon.